Now, religion and human development, we look at religion and patterns of human growth, personality and behavior management. We also look at the theories of human development and their religious meaning, the role of religion in human growth and relationships. Concerning the descriptions, the course descriptions, you find that we are able to look at the introduction to an overview of the course itself on religion and human development. We also look at, in our week 2, understanding the concept of religion, personality development, and behavior development. Week 3, it should be the understanding human growth and development, the concept of development and characteristics, domain, stages, inferences, and so on. Concerning section 2, which has week 4 alone, we have major theories of human development. And of course, because we are handling psychology, okay? We are handling psychology, although I told you it has only 1 week, but we have week 4 and 5 are within section 2. So we look at Sigmund Freud theory of psychosexual development. We also look at behavioristic learning theories of development. Week 5, we look at psychosocial theory of Erik Erikson. The same week 5, we look at cognitive theory of human development. In section 3 of this course on religion and human development, we look at the role of religion in human development itself, and we can specifically look at the stages of human development. We look at also religion and development in childhood, religion and development in adolescence, and of course in week 7 we look at theories of Ronald Goldman, David Ekind, and Fritz Osser. And more specifically, we shall focus on James Forer's development theory, FDT, faith development theory. James Forer becomes very, very important to this course because he tackles religion directly, religion and psychology and psychological development very, very, very directly. Week 7, you talk about week 8 now, we talk about Kohlberg's theory of moral development. How do we develop morally? Then there's also religion and the 5 factors of personality. Section 4 is, or week 9 and 10, we looked specifically at Islamic and generally at perspectives from different religions. For example, Christian perspective on human development, Islamic perspective of human development, African traditional religion and human development, Hindu or Buddhist perspective of human development. Okay, the last section for the entire course, we call it section 5. We look at the effect of religion on relationships and behavior application in different contexts. For example, marriage and family life, university life. Week 12, we look at workplace, crime and delinquency, coping with stress, all that. And of course, you can see the questions there. Differentiate between the terms growth and development. They are not the same. Describe essential principles related to growth and development. List factors that influence growth and development. Explain the concept of temperament. Describe the stages of growth and development according to various theorists. Describe characteristics and implications of Freud's 5 stages of development. And identify Erik Erikson's 8 stages of development. Explain Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Compare Kohlberg's and Girian's theories of moral development. Compare Fowler's and Westerhoff's stages of spiritual development. Show the interplay between religion and human development. Now, you can see our references. I've put it there. You can see it in the web. I've put it for you on the screen. And of course, there are those the so-called possible questions thereabout. Show why a study of human development from a psychological perspective is necessary in the 21st century. Explain the 8 stages of human emotional and psychological development described by psychologist Erik Erikson. Discuss Erik Erikson's first 5 stages of life, infancy through adolescence, with a focus on the adolescent identity crisis. Analyze the various theories and perspectives of human development. Discuss Piaget's cognitive development theory. Discuss Piaget's sensory motor stages. Critically assess Bronfenbrenner's ecological systems theory and show its implications for all our contemporary world. Another one, as a religious person, to what extent can you agree with Bowlby's theory of attachment? Question 9, show the factors that influence growth and development and their impact on the religious society. Show the factors, of course, that one you have noted. Critically assess the behavioristic running theories of development, showing their relevance for the religious community. What is the relationship between religion and psychology? Discuss the relation of dreams to religion and psychology. Discuss psychological meaning of any one of the following: religious conversion, religious growth, prayer and worship, prophetic message, psychology of religion. Any of them or all of them. Discuss their meanings psychologically. The other question is, show the importance of psychology of religion. Some are repeated now. Analyze any 2 key figures in human development and show how they view religion. Of course, you have to underline these guys. It is Erik Erikson, Carl Jung, others call him Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud, others call him Sigmund Freud in terms of pronunciation. There is also William Jones. Question 16, what is child psychology? And why is it necessary for professionals to study it? You can see more questions there. Psychologists places a great emphasis on the uncovering and understanding of unconscious motivation. Discuss, of course, with the relevance and reference to religion. The other question is, what is child psychology? Why is it necessary for professionals to study it? Another one, discuss James Fowler's stages of faith development. We're repeating. Discuss Lawrence Kohlberg's stages of moral development. Question 6, show ways and means of coping with stress and depression from a religious dimension. Show how defense mechanisms can be harmful to the religious community. What makes a person to have a low self-esteem, and what should one do so as to maintain self-esteem? The other question, either discuss Islamic perspective on human development or the Christian perspective on human development or the African traditional religious perspective on human development or the Hindu or Buddhist. The other final question, discuss religion and the 5 stages of personality development. Now, when we now come to the course content itself, oh, my time is still there, I have 15 minutes now. You look at the introduction itself, and I should hasten to say that one key feature of both the religious and psychological understandings of the human development is that people are not static entities. Life from birth to death involves many changes in our physical, psychological, and spiritual makeups. In psychology, this issue can be explored through 2 major schools of thought. That is, the psychodynamic tradition and the cognitive structuralist school. And in this course, we will look at variations on the structural approach. Among other approaches, we shall study individual contribution in human development. Further, the course will attempt to expand our understanding of religious and spiritual development during childhood, during adolescence, and even during adulthood, by considering the empirical literature and some other approaches in the context of these theories. Approaches to human development. A, human development or psychological definition. Psychologically, human development, the process of growth and change that takes place between birth and maturity. Human development is far from being a simple and uniform process of becoming taller or larger. As a child gets bigger, there are changes in shape and in tissue composition and distribution. In the newborn infant, the head represents about a quarter of the total length, but in the adult, it represents about 1/7. In the newborn infant, the muscles constitute a much smaller percentage of the total body mass than in the young adult. In most tissues, growth consists both the formation of new cells, both it represents, let me repeat, in most tissues, both of the formation of new cells and the packing in of more protein or other material into cells already present. Early in development, cell division predominates and later cell filling. Different tissues and different regions of the body mature at different rates, and the growth and development of a child consists of a highly complex series of changes. It is like weaving of a cloth whose pattern never repeats itself. So now, the changes in height of the developing child can be thought of in 2 different ways. The height attained at successive ages and the increments in height from one age to the next, expressed as rate of growth per year. And if growth is thought of as a form of motion, the height attained at successive ages can be considered the distance traveled and the rate of growth, the velocity. So the velocity or rate of growth reflects the child's state at any particular time better than does the height attained, which depends largely on how much the child has grown in all preceding years. The blood and tissue concentrations of those substances whose amounts change with age are thus more likely to run parallel to the velocity rather than to the distance curve. In some circumstances, indeed, it is the acceleration rather than the velocity curve that best reflects physiological events. Now, in general, the velocity of growth decreases from birth onwards, and actually from as early as the 4th month of a fetal life, that you can see below, though the diagram seems not to be there. But this decrease is interrupted shortly before the end of the growth period. And at this time, in boys from about 13 to 15 years, there is a marked acceleration of growth called the adolescent growth spurt. From birth until age 4 or 5, the rate of growth in height declines rapidly, and then the decline or deceleration gets gradually less, so that in some children the velocity is practically constant from 5 or 6 up to the beginning of the adolescent spurt. A slight increase in velocity is sometimes said to occur between about 6 and 8 years. Now, this general velocity curve of growth in height begins a considerable time before birth. The peak velocity of length is reached at about 4 months after the mother's last menstruation. Okay, so that is part of growth. We may go on and try to dig deeper. But all I wanted to say is that there is psychological development within human development. There is biological development that I will not consider, but I've given you, you have the material for it. There is also economic perspective. Looking at the economic perspective there, we say that from an economic perspective, human development is both a process and an outcome, and it is concerned with the process through which choices are enlarged. Okay? You can go on and say human development thus defined represents a simple notion, but one with far-reaching implications. First, human choices are enlarged when people acquire more capabilities and enjoy more opportunities to use those capabilities. So human development seeks not only to increase both capabilities and opportunities, but also to ensure an appropriate balance between them in order to avoid the frustration that a mismatch between the two can create. Second, as already implied, economic growth needs to be seen as a means, or albeit an important one, and not the ultimate goal of development. Income makes an important contribution in human well-being, broadly conceived, yes, if its benefits are translated into more fulfilled human lives. But the growth of income is not an end in itself. In other words, those who are economically endowed, even in the West, are not necessarily the happiest people. America could be the largest economy in the world when we exclude the European Union, when it is put together. But the Americans are not necessarily the happiest people. Some would tell you the Scandinavians are the happiest people. Yet they do not have the biggest economy in the world. That the human development concept, by concentrating on choices, implies that people must influence the process that shape their lives. They must participate in various decision-making processes, the implementation of those decisions, and their monitoring and adjustment to improve outcomes where necessary. So we can go on and on and look at the economic development, which is actually not the concern of this unit on religion and human development. We are only trying to say you can look at religion and human development in three ways, though our bias will be on psychology, not on economic development or biological development. And of course, if we try to dig into the holistic approach to human development, we may even find ourselves going back to philosophy, where we say the whole question of human development goes back to at least Aristotle, who said wealth is evidently not the good we are seeking, for it is merely useful and for the sake of something else. And he argued for seeing the difference between a good political arrangement and a bad one in terms of its successes and failures in facilitating people's ability to lead flourishing lives. The idea of better human lives as the real end of all human activities was a recurring theme in the writings of most of the early philosophers. The great Arab historian and sociologist Ibn Khaldun devoted a whole chapter in his famous work, which he wrote, you can translate it from Arabic to mean Introduction to History, to the facts concerning economic sustenance and earning of income, and the explanation and the fact that earning is tied to the value of human labor. And in this chapter of his magnus opus, Ibn Khaldun draws distinctions relevant to the different purposes to which income earned through people's labor and pursuits is allocated. To the extent that income earnings are allocated to people's necessities and needs, they will constitute their livelihoods. If earnings are greater than people's needs, there will be surpluses that finance luxuries and capital accumulation. So Ibn Khaldun has gone on and on to talk about expenditures and other things, and likening and linking income to human labor. Some of these theories may be challenged today in the world of technology and from our religious background and from our religious perspectives. So it doesn't mean that is it. But again, I don't want to stop this lesson in the next 3 minutes without talking about how we measure human development from an economic perspective. One that shows we are developed, human beings are developed, is democracy or human freedom. When you are of democracy, that shows you are developed.